Today I want to talk a little bit about what we should be doing to stock our pantries with things that are going to be nutritionally beneficial. Now, I did go to college and get my nutrition science degree. However, I am not a licensed dietitian. I am not a registered dietitian. I'm not a dietetic. I am nothing of the sorts. I am just someone who has their degree, bachelor's degree in nutrition science. So this is just my take on the nutritional value of these different items. So first off, after that disclaimer, I'd like to take a look at this apple. Now this apple here is the whole fruit. Everything else, it has been processed down and preserved in just about every single way that I can think of, whether you're canning it as a jar of applesauce, like the one that I homemade here, or if you're store buying it and it's processed through a store, or if you're dehydrating it like I did it myself, or if you are freeze drying it. And again, you can do this yourself if you have a freeze dryer. I would love one, but they are wicked expensive. So for now, I have to go with store-bought. So those are the different ways that I can think of that you could possibly preserve this whole fruit. Now, the reason why I have the whole fruit here is because you can store these, and if you have a root cellar, that would be awesome. In those kind of conditions, they will last a little bit longer. However, the whole fruit is going to go bad at some point. Definitely not something you can save for, years and years. However, I do want to mention that whole apple because it is the most nutrition that you're going to get. Everything else has a little bit less nutrition. So, for example, what can you get from an apple? Well, an apple has quite a lot of potassium. For just one medium apple, there is about 195 milligrams of potassium, so about 5% of your daily value. There's also sugar, of course, but it's natural sugar, so it's not going to make you crash like that processed, white sugar is going to. There's also fiber in here, so there's about almost 4.5 grams of fiber. There is also vitamin C, about 14% of vitamin C, which you are definitely going to need, especially to help boost your immune system, which you definitely want to keep healthy should something happen. That is definitely something that you want. There's also a very little bit of magnesium, which is 2%. There's some B6, which is 5%, and just a touch of calcium and iron, which are both 1% each. So nutritionally wise, this is the best way to go, is to have the whole fruit unprocessed. Now, once I start breaking this down, it becomes processed and I start losing its nutritional value. Let's take a look at the freeze-dried apple. So the freeze-dried apple is probably the next closest thing that you're going to get to a whole fruit, because it is going to save most of all of that nutrients. And again, if you can do it yourself, definitely do it yourself. If you have access to a freeze dryer, definitely do it yourself. Don't trust the store the way they do it. In fact, let's take a look here. For ingredients, it just says Fuji apple. However, I can't even say that word. The people in control of what goes into our food say that you don't have to disclose everything in there if there's a very small amount of it in it. So is there just Fuji apples in here? Probably not. There's probably a touch of this and that or something else in there at the very least. So again, do it yourself. But looking at it, there is, I just want to look at potassium here. There's 90 milligrams of potassium in here for this one bag. Now, I don't believe that this one bag is a whole medium apple. However, remember the whole potassium in that whole medium apple is 195 um, milligrams, and this is 90 milligrams. So it would be safe to say that, you know, you definitely want to eat your whole apple. But where we're trying to save um, and have things for later, especially like the vitamin C, you definitely want to have this preserved because any vitamin C you definitely want. And apples are something that you cannot grow year round. Definitely not here. I don't know of all other areas, but here, we're only going to get apples a certain time of the year, which is closer to fall. And again, the whole fruit doesn't last forever. So where I can stock up on these, I definitely will. They were just on sale not too long ago, so I did buy some to have. Next, we are going to look at the dried apples. Now, these are dried apples that I did myself. Probably should have added a little bit more lemon juice to them because they look a little brown. I've had these for quite some time, and chances are I'll probably end up giving these to the pigs and start a whole new batch because they look a little too brown for me. But the point of the dried apples is that this is probably another thing that is going to be highly nutritious, but not the same as a whole fruit. The one thing that I liked about the dried fruit is that it contains a lot of the fiber and still has some of the vitamins and minerals that you would get from a fresh fruit. Now, if you do it yourself, you're not going to add all that sugar and other things that the companies will put in them. So the chances are, if you do it yourself, it is going to be better for you. However, keep in mind that you're going to need to store it properly. So definitely better than this. Do not use an oxygen absorber because there still is some moisture in the dehydrated fruit. So you do not want to use an oxygen absorber in there. If I were to store it better, what I should be doing is putting it in a mason jar and then vacuum sealing the mason jar, or even in a bag and vacuum sealing it. However, again, do not add oxygen absorbers to dried fruit of any kind. Finally, we have the applesauce. So basically the apple canned up. This just happens to be applesauce, and there is honey and cinnamon in this, which is why it's that color. And again, I did that myself, so I know exactly what's in it, and it is clearly just apple, honey, and cinnamon. If you buy it from the store, this is a no sugar added applesauce. However, who knows what else they put in here? Probably more preservatives than they need to. And it's just better to do it yourself. And again, the nutrition value is still fairly good. There's still vitamin C, although it drops substantially considering the other ways of preserving apples. Still have your fiber in there, and there's still the potassium, which is, the apples have the highest nutritional values for. So do it yourself, do it yourself, do it yourself. And again, because we can't have the whole fruit all the time, this is what you want to stock up on, is definitely your freeze-dried items first. So anything that you can get freeze-dried. I just was using apples today for an example, but that goes for pretty much everything. So when in doubt, when you don't have the whole food, I should say, not just fruit, the whole food, your next option is to stock up on freeze-dried to get the same nutritional value, following any dried ways of doing things, and then your canned ways of doing things, with the last option being buying things from the store. The more you can do yourself, the better. Now, if you don't have that many, and again, I'm just going to continue using the example of the apples. I only have a few apple trees, and they only just barely started producing fruit, so I'm not going to be able to get a whole bunch of apples and preserve it myself this year. So as the years go on, I'll be able to preserve more and more of my own. So what you can do is you can go to your farmer's market, or even the regular local grocery store. Farmer's market's always a better option, and get a whole bunch of apples or whatever you're preserving, and you will then have enough to do it that way. I know a lot of growers, farmers, who will have a bad year, or they just didn't grow enough, or something happened, bugs or parasites, or a disease of some kind, or whatever. Animals got into whatever it was they were growing, and they needed to go to the farmer's market, and so they could have enough to store up for the year. There's no shame in that. And again, if you're doing it local is best. You're helping out your local farmers. Who knows, maybe there's going to be a year where you'll have an abundance of something and be able to sell it, and that same farmer you bought all them apples for will come over and buy all the, the sugar beets from you, that you had an overabundance in. Definitely, preserve yourself. The other thing I wanted to mention, nutrition-wise, is when you have something happen and you need to rely on your backstock for things, it is not the time to go on a diet. So we should be eating healthy anyways, but we should not be stocking up on Oreo cookies and, junk food. We may like it from time to time, and it's okay to have the occasional little sweet or something in there, but that's not something that we want to focus and stock up on, because if we, things go sour and we need to, take care of ourselves and our families, Oreos and junk food like that is not going to make us feel good. It's not going to let us, go out there and do the things that we need to, because we're going to be doing a lot of physical labor should that time come, which I believe it is. So if you're not eating healthy already, now is the time to start. Definitely don't wait until something happens, and you have to start now. And I'm saying this from experience. As you all can see on camera, I am not the thinnest, most fit person, and that's because I made a lot of uneducated and bad choices earlier in my life. And now I have, to pay for that, So now that I'm educated and everything, I'm trying to get things back on track. With the two little ones, things can be rough sometimes. So just know that I am speaking from experience, through my background too, of college, and just my own personal experiences. So just to wrap things up, again, for Whole Foods now, and stock up and store those freeze-dried, dried, and canned items for later. All right, you guys, have a good one. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.